you network with those people long before you land here, and you find out everything you can on the job market, on interview styles, on how Canadians talk generally. So when you're in your first Canadian interview, you shouldn't give off the feeling that you just got here. That's why a lot of people, when they come back to Pakistan, they say, oh, there's no one to talk to and it's very isolated. Everyone cares for themselves. It's not going to be like it was back home, because it was on autopilot back home. You were in your environment.
Yeah.
When you're moving there, as I said before, start reaching out to people 6 months in advance to get to know how it's like over there. And so that way, when you get here, you will have a network. Right? So I reached out to a lot of old friends who had moved to Canada long before I got here.
Yeah.
And that's how I had friends and everything when I got here.
You're listening to the East Meets West Pakistani Professional Journeys podcast, released bi-weekly every Sunday at 5 p.m. on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple iTunes. All right, welcome to the East Meets West Pakistani Professional Journeys podcast. Today, we have Suwaid Khan, who graduated from IBA with a BBA in Marketing Management and currently is completing his MBA from Schulich School of Business, Digital Transformation and Consulting. He's worked at companies such as Misa Bank, Dawei, Crave Mart, Jenny AI, and now BlackBerry. It's a pleasure having you on.
Thank you for that introduction. I'd just like to correct your pronunciation of those names. That's Mizan Bank, Dawai, Crave Mart, Genie AI, and yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I think so. We will. You can do as many corrections during this interview. I feel like I'll mess up a lot of words here, but that's
okay.
fine. So I guess we can kick off, and we could start off in your time in Pakistan. So do you mind just sharing any, like, how your time in Pakistan was?
I start off when I started my bachelor's. I came to Pakistan from the UAE 1 year before my bachelor's. So I did my A levels there and I went to IBA there. A great experience, of course. IBA really puts you in that pool of people that, that are pushing hard every day. So you have that feeling of I've got to do something with myself. So that really helped. Then I worked for 4 years in Pakistan at 2 years at Mizan Bank, and then 2 years at Dawai and Crave Mart, which are two e-commerce or logistics platforms. Dawai was more focused on pharmaceuticals, while Crave Mart is still focused on quick commerce and grocery. And a good memory or a favorite time, my last job at Crave Mart was my favorite job, where it was only my second year as a product manager, and I basically built out and launched a logistics app from scratch, right? So from the product requirement document to actually creating the designs on paper with the designer, working with the engineers, figuring out problems with the data analysts. So I went through the whole thing, and every time we did 4 launches in 6 months, 4 proper company-wide launches in 6 months with the logistics and operations teams. And every launch, that was, I would say those were the highlights of my 7-8 months at Crave Mart. It just watching your app go live, something you've worked on with so many people, watching it go through and just resolving the problems on the spot. It just, you feel like you're in the center of something. You feel like there's responsibility on you, and it matters, especially when you're a young professional, as I was like 3 years into my career, 2 years into my career. So yeah, that was my favorite time in Pakistan. Of course, there is family and all that stuff, but professionally, like, I look at the highlight of my time as launching that app and working with those engineers. That was something that teaches you a lot.
Like, how did you, especially with those many launches, like, how did you organize yourself in making sure that you're able to hit those deadlines? Like, did you have like, something that kept you focused or made sure that you didn't like fully burn out or whatever? Because I feel like that's a big issue in startups in terms of just, you know,
Yeah. So
falling.
coming on from my first startup, moving from the Y to Crave Mart,
Yeah.
I had realized at the Y that as a cultural understanding of the company, how different groups work and how they work and how they interact with each other.
Yeah.
So I realized very quickly that at Crave Mart, logistics folks would come in like 9, 10 a.m. and the engineers would come in like 12, 1, in some cases 2 p.m.
Oh.
So as a product manager who has to interact with both, my day would be stretched from 10 a.m. in the morning till 6, 7, sometimes 8 p.m.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't call that very organized with my time or my tasks, but I would say I used time boxing, it's called. So first 4 hours are for myself and these folks. the logistics people any meetings or any concerns, any new file they want to go over or something. And then there's some personal time when the engineers start coming in. And then there's the technical meetings with the head of product and the head of IT and the
Yeah.
engineers. If I work this way, and then as a product manager, the platforms you're using are really important. So I think everyone uses Figma and Jira. There's not a lot to organize if you're using just the bare bones platforms. So it was simple. With the theoretical understanding of the field of product management, this is the app we're going to build. There's not much to organize really. There's I organize it mentally in a way like, okay, who are my workflows? The designers are my work. That's one workflow. Then the engineers are one workflow. The data analysts are one workflow, and all the users, logistics, operations. I did some small feature development for finance. Those are users.
Yeah.
So then I create 4 lists, as in what do I owe to each one and what does each one owe to me. That's a very simple 4-column thing that I organize myself with. And the platforms are for collaborating with the rest.
Got you. And you already pretty much talked about the actual job of a product manager, but do you mind just going further in terms of what the job might be for people who don't know what it is? So you already talked about the collaboration
Yeah.
portion. So I guess it's also the end product as well.
I would say that product management is the ideation, creation, and ongoing management of a software solution. This involves the product manager owning any new developments to the app, right? It doesn't mean that all the ideas are mine, but if some stakeholder like logistics or data, or if the client start complaining that your expected delivery time is not matching to what the time the rider arrives at. So that sort of issues you have to keep an eye on, and you have to own it. If someone brings you an issue, like customer support brings you an issue, like this sort of issue is increasing, or data team brings me an issue, this sort of issue is increasing. The product manager's job is to act as a filter between teams, right? And especially between users and the end customers. Users would be the people you're developing it for. For example, in my case, logistics, operations, finance, and end customers, the people who are ordering from CraveMart. That's one side. And the people that I'm acting as a filter are who I'm doing it for are the technical teams, data analysts and the engineers, right? So I act as a filter, as in to let only the most important work pass through.
Yeah.
Of course, all work is important, but the product manager prioritizes, makes a case for why this is more important at this point of the product, at this point in the development of the product. He takes that case to the head of product and he gets the approval, and he gets the execution done priority wise. And then we move on to the next item on the agenda. And what usually happens is some other thing pop up, some technical issues, some business change, and that's how you go on. So this whole process of managing the app, and from a business and technical perspective, that's product management.
Okay. And did you know you were interested in this field, like specifically product management, or did it just develop as you just got jobs and you went from there, or did you know from the very high
Yeah,
school, or what was it? How was that for?
I'll be honest, I did not know about the job
Oh,
until my university in Pakistan reached out to me that this company wants to interview you. Right. So
okay.
before my time at Schulich, I was doing a master's of science in business analytics at KSBL, Karachi School of Business and Leadership. Although I did not complete that degree, it gave me a lot in terms of teaching me practical data skills. So I learned Python, etc. Anyway, at that time, I was working at Mizan Bank as a relationship manager, more or less. A relationship manager is like an account manager responsible for revenue for a given set of clients. I have to add clients and bring in more clients. So my clients were exchange companies, like Western Union was my client, Sydney Forex, and this sort of thing. Anyway, so I started that degree hoping to go into data or become a data manager or data analyst. I did not know what I was doing. I'll be honest with you, business analytics was the new thing, and I was like, better know this, right?
Yeah.
And that's when I got my interview call for a product manager. The Y approached my school and I interviewed with them. And I'll be honest, I remember checking 2 days before the interview, what does a product manager do and how I could fit that to my role at Mizan.
Yeah.
Yeah, what helped was that I was responsible for revenue at Mizan and
Yeah.
presenting plans of what I'm going to do for each client, presenting that to the head of the home remittance unit. So I put that sort of experience into product terms as to I can read metrics, I can I can talk to clients, etc. And that's what I'll be doing in product management just internally. And I guess that worked, and that's how I landed into product. Otherwise, from an educational perspective, I had studied marketing. I was working on the client side in banking. I was studying business analytics, which really helped, but I didn't go into analytics as such. But yeah, that's how I got approached. And the analytic background really helped me in setting up what sort of dashboards I want to create, or
Yeah.
coordinating with the data team if they're misinterpreting some sort of metric, because maybe they don't know what data the business team is collecting. So in that sort of work, the business analytics degree really helped. And another thing it helped with was when engineers are working with code and they want you to check the conditions before it goes live.
Yeah.
So instead of him sending me an email, all right, these are the conditions and this is the code, you can check it on the Jira. These are for the final go ahead. I can just peek over their shoulder because it's a startup, no formal approval process. I just peek over their shoulder. Yeah, it's good to go. I can only do that for Python, by the way. I'm not bragging or anything. That's how I landed my job in product. So the why was good. I was a product owner, although not managing the applications. But when I got to Cravemart, I was managing not only building out the logistics application, but managing the ERP as well. Like when physical stock goods, your groceries get to the warehouses, how are they stocked in the shelves? How are they picked up by the shelving people, how the orders are packaged, then the quality control. Every point someone is scanning it to make sure the timelines stay in check. The quality control scans it, it goes to the logistics folks. That's when the customer gets the notification, all right, your order is in process. So this whole process, it involved the ERP and the logistics apps.
Yep.
So at Cravemart, it was divided very beautifully. There was one guy pre-order. He was the pre-order product manager responsible for everything that the customer sees. And I was the post-order product manager.
Okay.
So after the order lands, everything fell under my domain. And that was, as I said before, it just makes you feel like you're in the center.
Yeah. So after you completed your time in Pakistan, you moved to Canada. Like, how was that process? You can go anywhere you want with this.
I decided on my MBA. Actually, I decided far before I started my application for my MBA. When I was in Mizan Bank, I was like, this is good, easy, fun work, but this is definitely not what I want to do for the rest of my life, right?
Yeah.
Because that job I learned in 6 months and then it was the same thing every day. It was fun, but it's the same thing every day. So I thought, all right, I just knew that I wanted to find what I want to do after my MBA. I wanted to find that before I do my MBA so that I don't go into the MBA unfocused.
Yeah.
So that's when I worked in two different startups in product management. That's when I decided, yeah, this is what I want to do. It makes me feel good. I can do it. I can do it well.
Yeah.
So now is the time to do my MBA. So after I did 3, 4 launches for Cravemart. I started applying to universities. I started looking into universities, actually. I only applied to one university, that's Schulich School of Business.
Yeah.
And I got in. So I was like, why apply elsewhere?
Yeah.
And this is like a habit. Even for my bachelor's, I only applied to the IBA. I guess it works.
So in terms of getting exposed to the Schulich MBA, like what was that? I would assume it was challenging, right? Like from going from Pakistan to getting into Schulich's MBA program, it must have been quite challenging.
I'd say it wasn't too challenging
Yeah.
because challenging part I had done before graduation. So before graduation, I had taken my GMAT. Most people, they try to do the GMAT when they're working and they realize, oh, I've got to go to business school. I had just looked forward. I knew I was going to go for my MBA in 5 years. So I did my GMAT in my last semester when there was only one course in the last semester.
Yep.
So I used that time to prep for the GMAT. So that's the hard part done.
Okay.
After that application and all, that's not tough. Then I get to Canada and I start doing the MBA. I would say it's very similar to the IBA's degrees,
Yep.
to the BBA, apart from the new age tech courses that I'm taking. So I took courses in design here. I took courses in AI and that sort of thing. I took courses in information systems. So that sort of thing isn't done well at IBA, or at least until I was there, until 2018. Like they were teaching well. They had good professors in their departments, especially in marketing. I chose marketing as a major simply because the professors were so good. So the professors are of similar or better quality here, but it was really the new age tech sort of courses that they keep it cutting edge. So there was a course on practical design sort of thing, app design and the business idea behind the app, that sort of design. And there's the entrepreneurship business venture design course that I took, and the AI course that I mentioned, information systems. All of this had really cutting edge stuff like case studies from 2020, 2021, 2022. So it
Yeah.
shows you that they make an effort to keep it up to date with the practical stuff, and not just the practical stuff. There was another course that was on design philosophy, like psychology of this and that, and psychology of users. That sort of experience where you get to choose what you specialize in, and you specialize in it well to an extent that you're able to talk about it in front of undergrads and have them hang on to your every word like you're a professor. But all you've done is gone through university courses. So that's what I would say is a solid theoretical grounding along with thinking skills that Schulich does give you.
Okay.
Credit for.
Yeah. And then getting the role in Canada, like I feel a lot of people struggle to get their first role in Canada or in the West. How was that process like for you in terms of landing your first role?
Yeah. So I've just got to say before I give my, before I give like how I got my role, that, the general advice that you get is that you go there, network, and apply online. It does not work for most people, and it did not work for me. Or it might take a lot of time. So what I did was I got here, and I knew back from Pakistan that I'm going to have to find where startups post their jobs,
Yeah.
and I would have to apply to that. There's a number of factors for that. There's a number of reasons for that. But first one, and the main one, is that I'm going to be doing a full-time MBA. So I don't have time for a full-time role.
Yep.
So no formal bank or consulting would hire anyone for a part-time role, right? Secondly, I knew that my experience is in tech startups, tech-enabled startups, should I say. And I would just be taken more seriously as a candidate if I applied to Canadian tech-enabled or tech startups. So that's why I decided that when I get to Canada, I'll look for startup portals. So I think I've sent this to you
Yep.
over
Yeah.
LinkedIn as well.
Yep. I'm
So
sure
the
it's.
three portals are Wellfound, techjobs.marsdd, and ycombinator.com. So when I got here, I did some Googling and I started applying to those jobs, right? But I was also applying to other companies for internships, etc. But this is where I was applying for part-time roles. And
Yep.
sure enough, Genie AI, that's my first job. That's how I got that job. And I would say if students are coming here, or if anyone's looking for a part-time job, startups are likelier to hire you and likely to have lesser competition in formal companies that you're applying. And yeah, it's a fun experience working remotely because large companies are going back to the office mandate, right?
Yeah. That's yeah.
But if startups are hungry for talent and you have what they want, and if they're having trouble finding guys like you, then they're going to let you work however you want to, especially if you're a student, you have that control over your hours. So that's how I found Genie AI. And that's what I'd recommend to people to look for startup specific portals. Canada is really investing in deep tech sort of startup niches. So they're investing in AI, in cybersec, and blockchain. They've pumped money into universities to do research on blockchain. They're trying to turn Ontario into a place of choice for people looking to set up companies, right?
Yeah.
Uh, So, so the startup job market is going to be good for some time, better than large tech companies or banks.
Yeah.
But
It
only in certain niches. Sorry, I have to add that before I move on. Overall, it's not going to be good for tech workers,
yeah.
but it's better at startups, is what I'd say.
It's very interesting your story because it does make sense in terms of applying to these startups, especially the leeway you get while you're studying, right? So it's definitely, and you probably learn a lot more as well because you're in small teams. You're seeing probably all the functions, right? Because it's so small. So I'm wondering, like, in terms of the exposure that you got, do you feel like it was like across the entire business, or was it? Did you feel like the experience was great in terms of the short time that you were
Yeah.
there?
So my time at Genie AI was good. I just had to make a lot of effort into collaborating with different people
Yeah.
because in a remote sort of team setting, you have to take that first step. Otherwise, the collaboration might not happen.
Yeah.
So and what adds to this problem is that there is no formal way to proceed. That these are the meetings we do, and Like large companies, they have these update calls where the department invites everyone who's relatively concerned with a stream of work as to these are the updates. Anyone wants to talk more about them, then do reach out. Anyone who's in marketing or sales that thinks that, oh, this will affect my job, they reach out to the technical folks and they get their clarification, whatever. This sort of thing doesn't happen in startups, right? The
Mm.
engineers don't know who the marketing folks are. And as the marketing guy here, I had to be constantly reaching out to managers within the developers,
Yeah.
tech managers or the product sort of folks to get sort of product updates. Where are you with development? All right. When I joined, they already had the model set up to run for 4 or 5 different industry verticals. Right. The AI models were already running them for real estate, for e-commerce, and for logistics. So 3 companies they were doing it for properly.
Yeah.
So yeah, when I spoke to people that had worked with clients in each of these 3 domains, like the account manager is someone who's doing it for e-com, someone who's doing it for logistics. That's when I really started progressing in the role.
Yeah.
So, because I know what Genie AI is doing that other startups are not doing, how we can change the model to fit your needs. Then it was more about it covered different areas. As you said, in a startup, you have to do different things.
Yeah.
So there was SEO focused content creation was a big part of it. Finding different platforms, as in which SEO focused platform should I use in my company.
Yeah.
So that was my decision to make. Then they were managing the intern that prepares the graphics or organizes the content. Then a huge part of my job was writing proposals for government contracts. So the government of BC, for example, the government of Ontario, the overall Innovate Canada arm of the Canadian government, they keep pushing out new projects that startups can bid for. So writing proposals for this sort of thing, that was my job as well. Since after I started with the SEO focused content creation, they're like, oh, this guy can write well. So when they came across an opportunity, they're like, all right, you're writing this as well from now on. So yeah, this was more or less the main part of my job: team management and SEO focused content creation and pitching for government contracts.
Yeah. It's very interesting that so you basically just applied online and there was not that much networking involved to get that,
Oh, maybe,
or
sorry, I skipped that part.
uh,
Every startup I applied to on these portals, I would Google the startup or I would search for it on LinkedIn. I
yeah,
would find like who the CEO or the head of marketing is. I would reach out to them, drop the message. Hi, my name is Suwaid. I have XYZ product experience in Pakistan and I would like to work for your company. I saw your role on this portal and I believe I'm qualified. I'd like to discuss this more over a call.
yeah,
Looking forward to discuss more over a call. This sort of message I would put to every company official that I can find in that startup. And this way you do get interviews easily. Let's be honest, if it's a small company and you're applying to 100 small companies and you reach out to 5 people in each company, you're bound to land interviews.
yeah.
So that's what I did for Genie AI. And I remember the CEO, he did not reply back formally. He's like, why should I hire you? And that's when I remember I wrote like a long paragraph as to why I would fit in a marketing role.
Yeah.
And he was like, all right, yeah, let's talk. Then he set an interview date.
Oh wow,
That
that's
was good.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you never know where opportunities will come. At least need to try, I think, is the biggest thing. So that's really good.
It's funny. It's funny. I should mention that my current internship at BlackBerry,
Yeah.
I landed it the exact same way.
Oh,
BlackBerry is a large company, so I said the number 5 for reaching out to 5 officials for startup referrals.
yeah,
At BlackBerry, I decided. So when I was applying for internships, right in my second and third semesters, what I did was any large company like what's it called, Metrolinx, right? They manage the
yeah,
TTC,
yeah,
etc. That sort of thing. These companies, I would reach out to at least 30, 40 people with the same template message with the name changed. Hi, I'm looking for a referral for this internship. Attach the link, and this is why I think I deserve the internship. Looking forward to have a chat, and thanks for considering me for the referral. So I was doing this, and a lot of people from Metrolinx and other companies would get back. People are helpful. If you're reaching out to a large number of people, then you will find helpful people.
yeah,
And that's what happened at BlackBerry. Someone at BlackBerry, they told the HOD and the And that's how they saw my CV. I was later told that, yeah, your GMAT was so good, it was on your CV, that we decided to hire you simply based on your GMAT.
Wow. Okay.
And I was like, okay, so it works. It works. You reach out to, it's a numbers game. You have to do it well, but it's about how many people you reach out to as well.
Yeah. No, that I feel like that's such an important advice, especially for people who are moving here as students and they're starting. Because as a student, even for myself, like you apply to these large companies and you mentioned it's extremely competitive to get into. So this is another outlet I feel to definitely look for, at least for students. But do you have any other general advice for immigrants that are moving or starting their careers in the West or in Canada?
I would say work on your LinkedIn more than your CV, and then work on your CV and interview skills as well. So interview skills and LinkedIn would be more important than the CV in a lot of cases if you're going into the sort of companies that I'm applying for, right?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people back home, they focus most of their job hunting effort on refining the CV. Uh, Focus more on how do I reach out to potential people, right? Research the sort of, you could say, if someone is a financial professional and they're moving to Canada, they should talk to financial professionals before they get here,
Yeah.
and they should network and find out, okay, how does this work? How does that work? What are the different departments within? What's your job like? So that way they know how to pitch themselves in an interview. If you get here and you start that process, that means you've lost 6 months.
Yeah.
This sort of research you should start doing. There's WhatsApp groups, Facebook groups, you can look for them, LinkedIn groups that are aimed at helping Pakistani professionals when they land here. You network with those people long before you land here, and you find out everything you can on the job market, on interview styles, on how Canadians talk generally. So when you're in your first Canadian interview, doesn't it you shouldn't give off the feeling that you just got here.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So that's, yeah.
Okay. And from your experience, like starting from Pakistan and then moving to Canada, is there any like specific habits or skills you've developed that really stand out that's allowed you to be this successful? Is there something that really, really comes on top of
Uh,
mind that's allowed you to be at this level right now?
I would credit Stoic philosophy and it is what it is mindset, right? Applying for, like, before my BlackBerry internship, I applied for at least 550 different internships,
Okay.
right, within 3 months. And there's no slowing down because of it. It's, you decide that, okay, I'm going to apply to 5 or 10 every day, 5 every day. And on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, I'm going to apply to 10 every day. So think of it more as this is something that Suwaid does every day. Or if you decide to, let's say, go for a walk every day, then just think of it, this is part of me. It's not
Yeah.
something I have to do. It's something I do.
Do. Yeah.
Once you take that thinking to the problems you face or what you have to do, once you take that sort of thinking is, I do this, I don't have to do this, then it just becomes easier.
And I guess what does success mean to you, like professionally or personally as well? You could go anywhere with this question here. And
My professional life should not encroach upon my personal life. And that within my professional life, I don't feel like I'm working. Of course, the money and everything, how much does the job pay? Those are secondary factors. But if you don't feel like it's work or it's something you have to do when you get to work, then that means you're halfway there to success. If you wake up with, yes, another day of work. Once you start waking up with, yes, thank God for another day of work, another day of adding to the shareholder return.
yeah.
Uh, I run the capitalist machine. I am a good cog, right? I'm not a bad cog. That's mentality. You got to wake up with it. And yeah, and then it becomes fun, right? You get into
Yeah.
thinking that way. How do I maximize productivity for my team? Right? And I think it's a thought journey. I would say if one reads Built to Last, it's a popular business book. Many of your guests might have mentioned it, but these books, they talk about how to keep the company's wheel running well,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, you immerse yourself into business book mentality. And that's the sort of mindset you take to work every day. You still leave at 5 p.m., but the time at work, it becomes play
Yeah.
if you believe in the mission.
And any traits in Pakistani culture that you feel that people should maintain in the West? Either it could be like personal, interpersonal lives or professional lives that you feel are really important? Because like we're working, so then you lose your connection with Pakistan or maybe in the future. But what are some of the key ones that you want to maintain as you progress here in Canada?
I would say personal ties, right?
Yeah.
We put a lot of emphasis on that. You sometimes to a toxic extent back home.
Yeah.
But once people get here, they quickly realize that the old connections and social rules don't apply.
Yeah.
So either you've got to make the effort to develop networks, and you've got to find different groups of people for different friend groups for different things, different professional associations you're part of. You've got to know a lot of different people for different things, because these things, you don't think about them when you're back home, right? You have work friends and you have family friends and you have relatives. But once you get here, you have to plan out your social groups. You have to plan out your connections. And that's why a lot of people they say, when they come back to Pakistan, they say, oh, there's no one to talk to and it's very isolated. Everyone cares for themselves. It's not going to be like it was back home, because it was on autopilot back home. You were in your environment.
Mhm. Yeah.
When you're moving there, as I said before, start reaching out to people 6 months in advance to get to know how it's like over there. And so that way, when you get here, you will have a network. Right? So I reached out to a lot of old friends who had moved to Canada long before I got here.
Yeah.
And that's how I had friends and everything when I got here, and I never felt away from home. That sort of.
Awesome. No, so that was really helpful. You talked about so many different, like your experience as a product manager, your experience in getting startup jobs and landing BlackBerry, as well as doing the MBA at Schulich, which is extremely
Yeah,
challenging
good
to
one.
get into and go for. So, no, thank you for your time. And it's been a pleasure talking with you.
Looking forward to staying connected, Azam. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Have a good day.